You
All
back?
right.
There she
Can you hear
is.
me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Yeah.
Came back in like
Um,
a whirlwind. He like grabbed the mic and it was
yeah. Like, I'm fucking back. It's
like
very like it's Aries energy. What's your sign?
Oh, which one do you think?
Well, you said ooh, so are you like a Gemini or Scorpio?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I said
Maybe the
ooh for a
Gemini
different
thing.
reason.
Oh, are you an Aries also? No, there's
I
no way.
am
Wait,
also an Aries. Um,
no way. You're an Aries
yeah.
too?
Yahweh.
Well, this is very. I always make a joke when like an Aries meets another Aries. Um, it's like a really big deal. It's like
Well,
you're an Aries too.
it feels like a big deal.
um,
What's
no,
your
I met
birthday?
when I April 13th.
Oh, okay.
What about
You're
you?
just at the end of it then.
Mm-hmm. What about
Okay.
you?
I'm March 28th.
Oh, you're the March Aries. Okay.
The March. Trying to classify me.
I I have a really close friend. She's a March Aries. Um, they're just different. April Aries and March Aries.
Keep going. Keep going.
I'm not astrology like wasn't my it's not my intuitive gift yet. Maybe it comes online, but I have some friends who are really powerful astrologists. But I just yeah, I see a little some differences in the March Aries and April Aries. And as I say it, I'm just like, is this just a whole bunch of bullshit? But I'm like, no, like it's I find that March Aries are more low key Aries. April Aries are more like I'm an Aries, everybody, but I don't know. Like it could be different for everyone.
I think where I've gone to astrology is I think that it's very powerful at telling us what our ego is and our ego self. But I think that once you get a little deeper into it, I think you're able to transcend it, if you will. You're able to like leave it at the door. So like a lot of stories that I've heard about my like astrology and my birth chart, I'm like, oh yeah, like I have a story to explain every single one of these. However, as I've been like doing this, especially how you weren't able to guess, I've had a lot of astrologers who have like asked me like, "Oh, are you this? Oh, you're probably this. Oh, you're that." And I'll just sit there and be like, "Nope, nope, 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 nope."
Mm.
They're like, "Oh, you're just so flow and like Bob, you must be a water sign." I'm like, no. So the way that I break it down for people is that I think it's so ego based because it's a system that's used, or it's a system that describes the universal alignment of where your physical body was when you were born. So like that moment that, your soul's like officially on earth, you take your first breath, that's what it's designed to pinpoint. And so I think what that is it's saying like these are your egoic tendencies. So, you become hyper if you are hyper aware of your ego or like very deep in your material presence, then I think those are what the elements are that show forth. But I think if you're
Mm.
able to then transcend those, that's whenever you start unlocking your, let's say, spiritual personality.
I love that, your essence. I really love that. And yeah, I found through like, yeah, because like astrology is cool, but like I don't do like my daily astrology report or anything like that. But I love being an Aries, and it's for sure an egoic thing.
Yeah.
For sure. Like,
When you said that, I
me,
was like,
I'm
me
all,
too. And I was
I
like,
know,
yeah,
I was
ego.
like, yeah, I was like, for sure. It's like, yeah, and that's yeah, and so I yeah, I'll refer to the Aries and I'm like, yeah, Aries are like they're leaders and they're really they're adventurous, you know what I mean? And I'm like, and
There's the
just
coolest
it's
people on earth.
yeah, and like everyone feels that about their sign. They're like, oh, like I'm such a this, like, or I would because I'm this, you know. It's like it's cute, and um, also yeah, like I'm not um like an astrology person, but I like how you said that, and that's a big part of like the and it kind of ties into right before I left, right before I went to P, where it's like the empath, where it's like um, all of this ties in. It's like you get to a point in the spiritual journey, and like spiritual meaning just like waking up to the fact that you're a soul and you're spirit and body, but um, where it's like all of this fluff. There's all this fluff, and it's like this and then that, and then like and then this and then that, and then you're this and then you're that, and then here's your this test, and then do that test, and then this is a trying to construct the human when the human's like so multidimensional and always
Mm.
just like changing and flowing and evolving. And um whoa, like I don't know why it's just coming to me right now, but like it's like a realization even as you're speaking on that, like almost like humans love to have some sort of like safety or some sort of like something to latch onto. And when you through the awakening journey, you kind of like I said, you wake up to the light and then the dark and then your essence. And your essence just like this pure, just like oneness. Like you don't have any labels or anything. You just are. And like deep down that is my truth. but but I know that some people's truth, like some astrologers I know, like they receive their messages through the divine and that's how they construct their journey in life and help others to find meaning, you know. Um, but I do think it gets to a point where you're just like, I'm just, I'm just a light body. I'm just energy.
Right. And I think it comes down to like that how much of are you attached to that this physical world, right? Because if you're super attached
Mm,
to the physical nature, I think that's where astrology comes in and helps. And I've had a ton of astrologers on here, and I think it's very accurate for the purpose it serves. But it's kind
mm,
of funny. The one that I had on, she actually lives in San Diego as well. Her name's
mm.
Haley. What episode was that? 51 ish, maybe 52. She, I got to check it now. She was talking about how 51 Haley comment. She was talking about how when she met her boyfriend, like one of the first things she asked was his like sign and his like zodiac stuff. And she was like, oh, there's no way. Like I could never, date this guy. Like it's off the tables. Flash forward a month or two and they're dating. And she talks about that in the podcast. And at the time I didn't realize it, but like even now it's right. It's like, why would one person want to become so attached with some sort of system that it's going to close you off from the potentiality that any one person could be that person for you?
I love that. Yeah.
So you had a quick beat rewind. You said you had a story though that lined up perfectly with
The empath.
this topic that we're talking about here. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of goes with it, not fully, but this it's just like extra fluff. It's just like when I first had my awakening, and if my sister's listening to this, she'll laugh because I was like, yeah, empath, was coming online in me. I think we're all empaths, but it just comes online for different people to different extents. Some people can feel deeper into others and so on. And I like, I just started to feel like so deeply, like even before my awakening, like the weeks before, I remember being on Instagram and I saw that someone's grandparent had passed away and I just felt it through my whole body, a post of a person I didn't even know. And I was like bawling, crying. And like for me, like I wasn't like a big crier like back then. It was just like I just felt so much pain through my body. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, why am I feeling so deeply? I don't even know this. What's going on? And then through my awakening, I had couple weeks later, whatnot, I started to, once I got out of that dark time, like just started to get really like feeling people's energy or just like, and I was like, I can't be around people. They're so overwhelming. And like, I'd really just like, I hadn't integrated yet. Like, I just couldn't handle it. And so I was like, my sister was like, you literally can't handle anything, Caroline. And like, I was also in a psychosis. So like, it was hard to handle things. But like, even getting out of that, like, I was like, it's like, it's too much energy. It's like too much for me. And like, all of a sudden, I'm like, another label, introvert, and I was so used to being labeled extrovert. And so this whole like the journey of awakening, I feel like empath is like a big part of it. And someone made a post about this the other day, like yeah, like starting to like label ourselves. So it's like that's like a reason that we just can't be around people or can't do things, or it's like it kind of feels like placing your power outside of yourself. And like, yeah, maybe if you don't want to, if someone's vibe isn't the vibe, then you just leave or whatever. But for me, I was using it like as like a, I was in a victim state of mind. I was just like, I'm so empath. I just can't handle your energy. My sister was like, you need to like shut the fuck up with that. Like she was like calling me out because I'm a triplet. So they're like so straight up with me and
Whoa.
just so blunt and honest. And she's like, honestly, Caroline, just like STF you.
3 Aries, that would be wild.
Yeah. It's funny because we have a lot of close friends and they're all friends with all of us. And whenever we get in a little tiff, an argument, my sisters and I, we're best friends, but we obviously fight for family. And, and like whenever a friend gets like stuck in the middle of the fight where it's like all three of us are like almost like, hey, choose my side. I always tell a friend, you better be careful because you are about to get thrown into our fire and this gauntlet you do not want to be in. Because what happens is we're
Pun intended.
even, yeah, like us three could be in a fight, an argument. Usually it happens like two of us will be on the same side and then one of them is feeling left out. So then the two of us will be like, all right, well, I can't gang up on her. So I'm going to leave you and I'm going to go be with her, even though she's in the wrong and I love her. Like we always want to make sure that each person's good, even though we could be in like the most brutal, like crazy fight. And then a friend sometimes can get like swooped into it if they're like with us or on like a trip with us. And then the friend knows to be really careful because no matter what the friend does, we're always going to choose each other, even if we're mad at each other. Like, it's like us until the end. So like our friends are really good at remaining neutral, but there have been a couple instances where a friend wasn't neutral, and then we all were like, "Oh, that's a shitty friend," even though they're like, "Wait, dude, I'm helping you." And we're like, even it could have been like a best friend of, it could have been like a best friend of one of ours. Like one of us is usually the closest with them,
Right.
and then they're like, "Wait, you're not a good friend if you're ganging up against my sisters," and it's like such a mind fuck. They're like, "What, dude?" Like,
And you like baited them into taking that side in the first place.
it's like a whole like gauntlet of fire energy, and I'm just like, it's so funny. My friend called me the other day. She's like, "Hey, one of your sisters, she reached out because we were in a little tiff, and so she reached out trying to get through to you, wants me to get through to you." And my friend's like, "I was sure to remain neutral and told her I don't want to be a part of it."
That's good because then it forces you guys to work it out internally.
Yes, exactly. It's having siblings or family, during the awakening, like when you awaken, and there's always new levels of awakening and it's a forever journey and yada yada, but you have like your big awakening and you're you realize that people in your life, friends, like maybe shifting, like, oh, maybe I don't resonate with this person anymore because I'm shifting in consciousness and I don't feel like we have anything in common or whatnot. You can kind of right adjust your friend circle, but you can't like adjust your family. Like you can't like
Mm.
not be family like that anymore. And right, there's boundaries you can set, right? If like people aren't fully accepting and stuff. But when I go and spend time with my family, like I go through full blown spiritual awakenings every single time. I like all my triggers come up. I'm just like, am I just at square one again? Like all of the work I done, like I thought I was like conscious. I'm losing my mind again.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful because if it's like a there's no other way to do it than with like love and compassion and just show up no matter what.
Well, I think family is super powerful, especially for going through one of these like spiritual awakenings. What I've noticed is that you can find a lot of your own internal programming in the way that your parents or even the way that you interact with your brother and sister or your sisters, for instance. Because I've noticed so many patternings that I'm super unconscious of. And then I see one of my parents carrying it out, and there's like this light bulb moment where I'm like, oh shit, that's where I learned it from. Like, that's why I do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it was like another subverted, like dark night of the soul. And then that takes you to a place where you start trying to help them because you already got through it, but they might not be ready for it. Or so then you get
Yeah.
frustrated. You're like, no, I know it's right. Listen to me. And then that just pushes them away even further.
Yes. I just got a vision of it's like a funny meme where it's like what you think you look like to your family when you're trying to explain to them like truths and spirituality, and it's like this like organized thing, and like what you actually look like literally insane, you know?
Is it
And
is it
like
what's his name from Always Sunny, whenever Charlie whenever he has like this whole like scheme on
Yeah.
the board and he's like smoking a
He's like,
cig and he's like,
listen, yeah.
yeah.
Like, listen, I have it. And like, this happened with me. It's like I was vegan at one point and I did that whole journey. And then realized it was no longer serving me. But I tried that, and my family, my siblings, because I'm one of four, so it's like the triplet girls, and our brother's a year older, so it's like four of us. And they saw me being vegan, and at first, it always happens every time I have an awakening of something, or like even what I share now, like hey, your trauma or anything, physical pain and mental things or trauma in your body, these awakenings I have, they always like push it away at first, and they're like, hey, like I know you're excited, but like this is like just like it's fine. Like stop trying to push your truth on us because you get excited, right? And it's like family, so
Mhm.
it's like I wouldn't do that to someone. I'm like, you guys are my family. Like there's no way you can't know. It's like maybe I wouldn't walk up to someone on the street and do that. I don't know, but like, and then they start to get like annoyed with me, and then I'm like the crazy one of the family, and it's called the black sheep, and I'm triggering all of their belief systems, and then they're just like, you're crazy. And then typically it takes a few months, but then they come around. Then they want to try veganism now. Then they want to read the Body Keeps the Score book on how trauma's in your body. And I'm like, they just had to hear from someone else. It was never going to be
Yeah.
for me. And then they're like calling me asking me um, about like journaling and breath work or breathing exercises, and I'm like, didn't you like hate on this like 5 months ago? You're like, you with your meditation. This is like a big part of my journey, and like I fucking love them so much, and I'm sure some of them are listening to this like laughing too because it's all love. But people can hate what they don't know, and like when you're stepping into truths, it's going to challenge your belief system and other people's belief systems, and it's just not always comfortable. And all of our truths don't have to be the same, right? Like
Yeah.
people, like I was vegan for a little bit. I was just trying that out. I don't know, like this is what I felt like doing, so I just did it. And so I was like, oh my god, everyone has to be vegan. Like, oh my gosh, like just like very like it's almost like sometimes like turning like this judgmental energy, and like that's not truth either. So it's like you just kind of warped yourself into your own matrix of ego,
Yeah.
thinking that you were out of it, right? And it's so funny. And so I learned along the path that this is like my favorite quote. Can't remember it fully, but like the most powerful place for me to be is like in a place where like I know my truth. I know my truth is ever changing, and I'm confident in my current truth. And I still can love another person even if they don't have the same truth, as long as it's not hurting anyone. Then I can still, yeah.
Yeah, it very much, I completely agree with that. And I think any idea or ideology that gets to the point of everyone needs to do X, fill in the blank, whatever it is, whether it's medication, diet, way of thinking, that's whenever I think ideologies or systems start to fall apart. And I think that's whenever people need to be very careful of any information they're getting. And especially whenever it comes to plant medicine, because I'm thinking back to that story and that kid I was talking to about, plant medicine, which is like, for me in my journey, taking that psilocybin trip was the most profound thing in the world. And if you had
Mm.
asked me a month after doing that, I would have said everybody needs to do psilocybin. It should be mandatory at school that every kid has to take microdosing before or something like that. But now it's, I'm seeing it as every journey is unique on their own. Every single person's body's going to react to a different diet. Everybody's going to react to a medication differently. And I think that that's a really powerful point to kind of drive home and like really take in, because I think that once you start probably egoically identifying with certain ideas and pushing those onto other people, that's when you can start creating a lot more harm in the world than good. Even though you can be sitting there thinking like, I have the best intentions, if it comes from this place of like forcing an idea into somebody or a thing or a event or a, exercise routine, I think that's whenever we start slowly finding our path towards hell as a society. And so interest yeah, if we're doing that at a mass scale, we got a
True.
problem. But if you're at the individual, that's kind of where it starts.
Yeah, mass hell, you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, hell's a state of consciousness, and so like that's what it is. And I couldn't agree with you more. And it's tiring. It's like so tiring to try to be like, this is the right way. Like I've literally been there. Like especially I think when I became like vegan, this is years ago, I was like, hey, like you got to do this. And so like I think it's really important, like when we're in our truths, like yes, beautiful, that's your truth, like hell yeah. And like how can you show up with like loving awareness and allow others to have their truths and trust in the divinity of everything, that if someone's meant to tap into your truth, like just you sharing and just being yourself will like attract those who are meant to experience or tap into your truth. But I like how you said, yeah, like when it's like trying to prove or like kind of over the top energy, it can push people away. And that's what happened with my siblings when I was like started to become vegan. I'm not vegan anymore, but I don't know why I felt like mentioning that. My girl just brought me some bomb steak last night, but I I was like bashing on them. I was like, oh my God, you're eating this. And they're like, literally, Caroline, like, step the fuck back. Like, my siblings are so funny. They're like, do you realize what you're doing? Like, we definitely don't want to listen to you now. Maybe we would have listened if you were like loving about it, or like, but you're just like forcing it. So now we like are for sure going to eat meat. We were like maybe thinking about vegan before, but now it's like, you turned us off from it.
We might mix some steak fat into your hair conditioner while we're at it.
That's hilarious.
What
Yeah.
got you started on veganism?
I was dating someone before my awakening, and we that was someone else. No, so there was this man that he was really into like health stuff, and he was teaching me a lot of it, and he was vegan. And when you're dating someone, you start to like sometimes pick up their truths and vibe together and experience that. And so I started to experience his veganism, and like he would cook these bomb foods. Like it wasn't like the vegan where we're eating like vegan freaking like vegan macaroni and cheese. It was like a more plant based whole food kind of thing. So yeah, it was like to not harm animals, and it was also to be just healthy holistically. And I just really liked it. I felt light, I felt good. It felt nice to just have something new in my life like that. And so I started to just adapt that and become vegan, and then I stopped being vegan and started like incorporating eggs and salmon into my diet when I got off birth control, because I just like intuitively felt like I needed some of that. Just I don't know how to
Mhm.
explain it. It's like the intuition's the thing you can't explain. And so I think it's so important, yeah, to like you can see everyone's truth, and we're like showing truth all over the internet, and it's like nice to just go with it and be like, what feels good for me,
It's
you know?
interesting you brought up birth control because that was something I probably just saw like an Instagram reel or something about it. And it was talking about how females and their mate selection, how radically different it changes if a female's on birth control versus off of birth control. And I think they were even talking about how females who are on birth control, and then when they go to get pregnant with their partner, their marriage, their spouse, they obviously have to stop doing birth control. And a lot of I don't know the statistics, so I want to stay away from it. However, it
Make
so
something
gen
up.
yeah, just make something
100%.
up. Every single one.
1,000% of you.
150%. But a large percentage, I guess, started viewing their partner in a different way once they got off of birth control, and it really even just made them reconsider their entire dynamic of the relationship. And so I guess I'm curious from your perspective. I see that it changed your diet, but like how did your worldview change from being on birth control to getting off of birth control?
Yeah. So I didn't notice a huge change in that actually, and I have seen that study and I believe it. It just like must not have been my truth because it didn't affect me like that, or from what I know. Because I was also, when I got off birth control, that was during my like the middle of that awakening. I got off Adderall, I got off birth control. No one told me to. I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like I just had this like aha moment, like, what the fuck am I doing? It just didn't make sense anymore. And getting off the birth control, um no, I just didn't notice that. I think my consciousness was already shifting, so I was starting to like be attracted to different kind of humans, because as your consciousness shifts, you start to see humans differently, and um, yeah, just your attraction can change. So it could have been birth control, it could have been shifting in my consciousness, um, but yeah, and I know that with birth control, getting off that too, there could be like so many changes that people talk about online, and like for me, it was pretty smooth sailing. I just like got off it after being on it for 10 years. Yeah, like I think like my body changed a little bit. Maybe like I got bloated and had to use some herbs or something, or you know, eat some healthier foods. And um, I'm sure obviously if it's, I know it's better for my body just not be on it. But oh, I got my most favorite part of being on birth control is like, yeah, I'm not taking synthetic hormones, but also like just have like natural like hormones and period and cycle and all that. But that was like the biggest change for me. It wasn't anything with like the way I see people or men.
Well, that's interesting because I think from my exposure to the conversation with birth control, a lot of women claim that they use it because of it being able to like regulate the symptoms that happens whenever you have a period. Did you find that, I hate to say, just being spiritually aware or elevating yourself to another level of consciousness, it feels a little muddy of a way to say it, but it sounds like you found a way. What I'm trying to get to is like you found a way to alleviate those symptoms of that birth control claims to help in that process of coming off of it.
Yeah, I worked with like a holistic or like nutritionist or health person, and just suited up on herbs and started eating really healthy foods and drinking lots of water. I did a lot to support myself as I was getting off it. I'm sure my body would have been fine on its own because your body's so intelligent and knows how to heal itself. But I, yeah, I just wanted to like nourish myself after having been on for so long. And I was ready to just like reconnect with myself. So
And
that
what
was
about
nice.
and what about with your diet? Because you're saying these herbs as well. Do you feel like eggs or salmon? Like, could there be like this fatty stuff? Like, just intuitively, I guess this probably isn't your
Yeah,
realm of expertise, but
yeah. It's a part of it though. Like I don't share much on Instagram, but I have like tried all the health stuff, the cleanses. So I'm like super into like the health consciousness, the physicality and all that. But for sure, like eggs and salmon were like so powerful, and I keep just seeing broccoli. Like broccoli was like so powerful. And I was on a few different herbs and supplements, and I do, that's a big part of the awakening too. You start to take all these herbs, all these supplements, like hundreds of things, and like that can be someone's truth in their path. But like through all of it, just getting to a place now where it's like I don't take any herbs, any supplements. I just eat like whole foods if I can, and maybe I eat shitty sometimes and whatever. Like my body can handle it, like you know. So yeah,
yeah.
very intuitive with it all. And same with the Adderall. When I got off the Adderall, um, that was a little bit of a different ballpark, but taking like adrenal cleanses and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, because especially in your situation, it sounds like the entire process happened so rapidly and also so consciously that it's almost like your physical body needed to keep up or like find a way to
Mm,
like match up with the consciousness that your mind and spirit were experiencing. So was like the birth control, was the Adderall, was the veganism, was this all during or before your dark night of the soul? Or and like how, like what's the timeline here
yeah,
with all of that stuff, your dark night of the soul, and then kind of coming off of it?
yeah. The timeline was veganism. I started to become into the veganism right before the Dark Knight. Like that's like a month before. And so it's like my body was already prepping. Soul knew the awakening was coming. Your soul chooses when it's time to awaken before it comes into this life. But my and then I got off the Adderall like a week before the awakening. I just woke up one morning. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And I haven't taken Adderall for years. First, it was like because I wanted to focus in college. And then it kind of turned into like, oh shit, like I could just like stay super skinny, which is what most women take Adderall for. I'm just going to call it out. Not everyone, but it's common and I lived it. So that's why I could speak upon it. And it was like, oh fuck, like I don't really like, I'll just take Adderall because like I'm just like kind of like not really eating a lot. That's sick. So like, it just like I was tired, I was getting sick, I was just like always getting sick, and I'm like, I gotta like get off this shit. And I felt like I was like a machine. I'd take the Adderall and I'd be like just like getting shit done. And my teeth would be grinding, and I'm like, what? And I was like angry, and I'm like, I gotta get off this. Like literally woke up one morning, stopped taking Adderall forever, and like didn't wean off or anything, and I should have. And then a week later, I went into my awakening, and I was vegan. I was off Adderall, still on birth control, and then like 5 months into my awakening, six, I've been wanting to get off birth control, but I was so scared because all the horror stories online, like, oh, you're gonna get depressed, you're gonna like gain weight and all that stuff. And so that was stopping me again, placing my power outside of me, as if like my body doesn't know how to heal itself and get back to equilibrium. The body is so intelligent. And then I finally just like got off the birth control. I was like, no more placing my power outside of me. Like, get this shit off, get this shit out of me. And I stopped. So that was like the timeline.
So it was kind of afterwards. And do you feel like there was a level of your body needing to shed, like whenever you started shedding that stuff, did you feel that you came more into alignment, or like you felt better almost instantaneously, or was it like more of like like a slow burn off?
It's almost like I felt like soul satisfied instantaneously. Like, oh fuck, like this is so sick. I'm just like, I don't have to take anything. Like, wow, like, and then it's like that kind of just stuck with me throughout time, where it's like, oh, like I'm not taking anything. My power's not outside of me. Um, and yeah, it felt and feels really good.
That's cool. Yeah, that seems super powerful, especially if there's like a specific state of mind you want to get into, trying to use external tools or utilities to achieve that, as opposed to altering your own internal frequency, if you will, into that state of being that you're looking
Hmm.
for.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it too is just being out of the program. Just like whenever you're ready, like it's a choice. You can like leave the program of, hey, you need Adderall to focus, or hey, you need birth control to not get pregnant, right? Most of my friends who were on birth control got pregnant on birth control. They didn't work
Really?
for a lot of them, yeah. And but again, to each their own. It just I was in this program of like I need these things, and then get up the birth control. Just got an app to track my ovulation and to be conscious, but I don't want to get pregnant. And for the Adderall, started um, just like having some matcha or something, or meditating for focus. It was hard at first for sure, but stepping out of the program where I, especially with Adderall, with the program of like, you need it to focus. As long as you say that, yes, you will need it to focus. So it's like changing the belief system. That was really hard for me, but so rewarding to just like be able to do shit without taking a pill.
Do you feel like there's a importance or a necessary necessary might not be the right word, but a way to look at it where you're you're taking this pill, you have this mentality that you need to take this pill. Do you see any benefits to just stopping the pill cold turkey and trying to get off of it versus changing your mindset before you stop taking it? Do you see any like pros or cons
Mm.
with which comes first? Do you stop the physical act, or do you change the mental behavior?
I think it just depends on the person and what feels better for them. For me, I was like, I can't take this shit another day. This is like weird. Like I'm confused why I'm even on this. But versus like kind of like prepping yourself for it. Um, like yeah, like prepping yourself for it more. So I think it could go either way, and I think that just more is based on like what feels intuitively right for you. And
Mm,
it might be hard, it might be easy, but if it's feeling uncomfortable, like that's okay. You know, when you've been programmed and you've also been on this, like, you know, uphill and just allowing your body to recalibrate. A big part that's coming to mind too is the movie Heal. It's a documentary on like heal, like you can heal given the right circumstances and stuff like that. And it goes deep into how intelligent your body is and how it always knows what to do when you give it the right environment to do so. That helped me a
mm.
lot.
Yeah, because that could be an issue where, sort of like in the example we were talking about with birth control, if you're feeding yourself junk food, you're loading yourself up on prescription meds, if you're plugging in all these different artificial toxins into the body, and then you simultaneously are listening to conversations like this, thinking to yourself, "Oh, I can just trust my instincts. I can just trust my body." But if it's juiced up on all this other stuff, it's like, not sure if you can trust it. You kind of need to examine one of those or the other first.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's such a journey. And like there's always gonna be space for like improvement, growth, and yeah, like really listening to your intuition, but always choosing like a healthy route. It feels so good,
Mm,
you know.
yeah. And speaking of journey, this is a question I want to get back to asking more of the guests. I used to ask this earlier on in the podcast, but
Hmm.
I don't know, just life things, decisions, stuff happens.
Hmm.
So your journey, it had to start somewhere. So when you were a little kid, maybe a
Hmm.
parent or guardian would have asked you this question. They would have probably asked you something along the lines of, what was the first thing you wanted to be when you grow up? So when you were asked that question, what was the first thing you always told people?
I wanted to be a chef. Like I wanted to cook, be a chef or cook,
Oh,
like really bad. Yeah. And I'd watch the cooking channel all the time, like in my room. Like if people watch cartoons or something, I'd watch like the cooking channel, like
oh,
Chef
wow.
Network or something. Food Network. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Oh, you're the
loved
one that
it.
watched it.
And I loved it so much, like so much. Um, so yeah, that's what I wanted to be. And then I ran downstairs one night and I told my mom and my brother, we were sitting at a table, like, you guys, I'm gonna be a chef when I grow up. And I don't know why this happened, but they just started laughing at me. They're like, you can't do that. And I was like, boom, trauma.
Oh,
That's what trauma is, unprocessed energy. And you can't process that as a child.
no.
So right before I stepped into this soul mission of mine, actually, that memory kept coming into my head. Like I'd be driving and I'm like, why is this memory coming up? Right. And when you're in awakening, like different memories will come up perfectly placed by your soul for you to clear the energy in. And um, that's like a lot of the work I do, the inner child, the quantum, just clearing all that energy. And I had to sit with that part of me that had experienced as a child, had experienced being so excited to follow a dream and then it being shut down. So that was in my body, that energy. And so I was at the point where I was going to follow this dream and step into my mission here, but something was stopping me. And once I like dropped into that and cleared through that, it was really intense. I like saw my inner child screaming, crying, yelling. I didn't remember that. Like she was just so sad that her dream just got shut down. And I met with her and like reparented her and like held her. And I swear, like the next day, boom, like I like started my soul mission, started my business. Like it's crazy, like how once I clear that energy, I'm like, well, I can do anything. I'm no longer like trying to follow something and it's going to get shut down because that's what I was, you know, that's what I experienced as a child, you know? And so, like, yeah, I can go on about this kind of stuff, but and how it shows up in our lives, but that's what I want to be.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite chef?
No, I think it was like it was like the one on the Food Network. I thought she was so pretty. I want to be a chef like her. I don't remember her name. I think it's Gina or something. Um, but no, I like loved baking a lot too. I'd made like Rice Krispie bars growing up, and my siblings like because they were
Oh,
104, so like right? Like Rice Krispie bars with like a hint of peanut butter in them. And like my siblings would like come downstairs in the middle of the night and like eat my entire batch I made. And it was like for me. I said it was for them too, but like I wanted it. I think I just wanted to like bake because like I loved food and like I wanted it. I don't know if I want to like bake for or cook for others. Like I just wasn't sure on that. But like so I started like hide it in the fridge. I'd find like spots to like hide it like under like and I'd bake and then I'm not like an amazing chef or cook now. I think I like let go of that dream. I love when others cook for me though.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's the way to your heart.
Yeah, like yeah, I tend to like when it's like a when I date men, they're typically always like really good, like conscious, healthy, like cooks. And I'm like, this is amazing. I also was in a long-term relationship with a man who had a daughter at one point, and like at one point I was in a relationship with him. He still has a daughter, but and I was
Thank you for clarifying.
yeah, she's
I
super
got
cute.
really
And
mad at him one night.
oh my god, that's there's some funny fights, but and he'd cook, so he'd cook for us because he'd cook for her. So like, I took my hands off the wheel and like trying to become like the girlfriend that cooks. Like I'm just like, listen, like babe, like you cook, like I'll clean and I'll like you know do yoga session for us. Like you cook. I'm like the chick who will like yeah like burn shit or something. It's not that I'm like a bad cook. It's just like I don't remember to set the timer and like I just don't care enough.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you had such a passion for it whenever you were a kid, and then now present day, after healing all the trauma, like that kind of passion almost isn't there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I'm seeing a vision right now. I get like visions a lot. And um,
That third eye
I'm,
is open.
yeah, started happening a lot since my awakening. I feel this like pounding in my third eye.
Mm.
Um, some intuitive gifts. But yeah, it's interesting. And maybe I'll get into cooking and become a chef at some point in my life.
What was your vision? You said you just had a vision.
Oh, yeah. I kind of just like, it's like when you're on a mushroom trip and you're like, you have like this, you say something and then you like don't say what's actually happening in your head and they're like, what is it? And you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So you're
like
saying coming on
life.
this podcast is like a mushroom trip?
Yeah, for
That
sure.
might
Yeah,
that might be the biggest compliment I've ever gotten.
I love that. Yeah, it's like a mushroom trip. This is mushroom trip. This is what it's one psychedelic journey we're on right now and life. And so, oh, the vision I had, I would always help my mom. Like it was hard for her to like take care of all four children. My dad was like on his business trips and stuff. So typical childhood with the unavailable parents.
Mm.
Typical, like childhood trauma where it's like abandonment stuff. But it I always helped her. Like I was always like the guide for her and like helping her and like I don't know where all the other kids were like playing around the house, but like just see me right now like holding her and just like taking care of her and like I was like started to become a guide at a really young age. Now it's like I'm a guide for others and people tell me I have this like on my retreat other weekend that people were like, you have this like mother energy. And I'm like, sick. I had no fucking idea. Like, I didn't even think about it like that. Just like nurturing and yeah, so it's that was a childhood thing that I was doing and didn't even realize I was becoming like something that I was going to be doing as an adult now.
Mm. So it
Hmm.
was almost like you were stepping into your parent role as a kid, and that's like more of the thing that's manifesting itself at this point in time.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've done a lot of healing work around that and just a lot of our parents like or caregivers didn't have the tools that we have now. They weren't part of like the healing era. They just weren't. And we
Mm.
are like right at that tip where we just like made it.
Yeah.
And um a lot of like in my sessions that I guide people through, we actually meet with their caregivers or their parents' inner child, which is really cool. So you're not only healing your inner child, but you're healing your parents' inner child also, and you're healing timelines. And it's just like it's hard to even explain with words, but it's
Yeah. How do
beautiful
you?
and yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm aware of some visualization techniques for you to heal your own inner child. But I think this might be the first I'm hearing of you being able to heal other people's inner child. Like what is kind of like the general idea of that?
So our caregivers, parents, like whoever your caregiver was, like did the best they could. And when you meet with your inner child in a session, it's different for everyone. But whether it was like not feeling seen, not feeling heard, or there was some deeper, there was
I feel
deeper
like you're
things that came
calling
up.
me out right there because I got vulnerable with you earlier.
Didn't even realize it, but it's like common. It's everyone, right? Doesn't feel seen and heard. Like it's so common, um, and this is what I experienced too. And I like yesterday, for example, it's just different for every session. But example is like when we were meeting with one of my clients, her inner child. I could visually see her parents' inner child show up. So then I guided that in. So during these sessions I guide, I'll get like visions and then I like speak upon it, like on what's happening next. And I could see them in like the quantum field. So it's like, yeah, it doesn't make full sense. You guys have to experience it, but it's kind of like we're meeting with their inner child. And like, let's say your inner child didn't feel enough or didn't feel seen or heard. We bring your higher self in to meet with your inner child, reparent, hold him, and so on. And then like the parent's inner child can come in at some point and
Mm.
depending on how the session goes, and then we meet with them and we just hold them and we reparent them. So we're healing like timelines. And yes, it's so hard to explain when the shifts begin to happen after these sessions. It's like literal magic.
That's interesting. Do you ever find like do people ever report that I'm sure that they see their parent in a different way, but do they ever find that it heals something within the parent as well?
Yes, this happens in so many sessions. And I
Oh.
was like, what? Right? I was like, because I started doing this work and like it's evolved throughout all the sessions I've been guiding. There's more things that have been coming through for me, like just straight from the divine. I'm like, okay, this next, guide this next. And like it's wild. Like they'll see their parents differently. Like after our session yesterday, after she opened her eyes and like I guided her back here, like she had to go grab her charger from her mom's room. And so she ran into the room and saw her mom and she just like saw her mom differently all of a sudden. She's like, whoa. And then she came back into it's like she was meant to have to grab her charger to just see how like quickly
Mm.
things shifted. And I find also like people's parents will literally shift too. Like I had a client of mine and he hadn't talked to his dad for a while and he had did some like inner child like clearing of his own. His dad came up in his inner child session as well. And we did some clearing there and met with his dad's inner child or his dad. Sometimes it's like the inner child or the actual parent and or caregiver. And literally, he texted me like a week later, Caroline, you're never going to believe this. My dad never reaches out, never wants to hang out. He reached out to me. And I'm like, yay. It's like that's just how energy works. It's you can't really explain it. We're doing things internally and that's shifting your entire external reality, you know?
What's the catalyst of this? Or is it just like a deep meditation session? Is it like journaling prompts? Is it worksheets? What's the tools that you're using to unlock this non-physical realm of existence?
Um, I love how David said this. David Lyon, we talked about him earlier. Love David. He's actually a mentor of mine right now. And
Shout out to David again.
David Lyon, I just saw him in my vision. He would just like I love him so much. But he, I love the way he refers to it. It's like a tuning fork is what he does for the people he works with. And I feel like that for my clients and the people that are just in my field, like a tuning fork for their energy body. And like how it works is we drop into session, we'll show up, whether it's Zoom or in person, and I'll bring some intellectual awareness with them to their experience. So a very common one is like not feeling worthy or not feeling enough. Um, and so we'll drop into like the themes that are playing out. And here's a really good one. There was a time where I was like going through getting ghosted and like rejected. And like no matter like, like no matter how I looked, like I make this joke, like no matter how fat my ass was, no matter if I had a six pack, like it wasn't gonna matter because it's energy. So like that's a story for another day. Like how everyone's trying to look a certain way to be enough, when that just, it was the energy within. It doesn't mean you shouldn't want to be sexy, but it just means like, don't make that the sole thing. But so in this session, I, or in like the session, like let's say like my past self would have come to me and she was like getting ghosted and rejected. And she was like, what's that going to trigger? It's going to make her not feel enough. She's literally just not going to feel enough. She's going to feel like sad, unworthy. And so she came to me. I'd be like, what's playing out? And she'd be like, well, I went on this date with this guy and then he rejected me or ghosted me. And then this other guy is ghosting me. Like, what's this? It's a pattern. And when you see a pattern, it's actually, you're the common denominator. So your unconscious energy is creating your external reality and you just have no idea. That's okay. But when you come into my arms, it's like, well, now you know what's going on. And so now we can fine tune it and we can shift the energy and then you can walk away and not get ghosted anymore. It's like, it's so simple. It just takes like a little bit of believing in it and just like allowing me to drop you in. and um and so that version of me, I would have dropped her in and asked her to like bring some intellectual awareness to the patterns going on in her life, and then just closed her eyes. And I'll start guiding you in through like a little meditation. You're human, your mind can let go, and I'll just guide you into your body. It's like my soul shows up with the other person's soul. It's very like, it's like these are like ceremonies almost into self. They can feel like psychedelic journeys. It's really beautiful, and it's all just your own breath, your own awareness, your own consciousness. And it's just so powerful to shine this deeper level of awareness in on these unconscious parts of yours. And me being there, me in this frequency of like having been able to tap into that with myself, it allows other people in these sessions with me to drop in that much deeper. Versus if someone on the street's like, hey, let me like guide you into meditation, like it might be different if they just haven't reached these depths within themselves so they can help other people navigate. So I would bring that inner child, that woman, that past version of myself into, it just depends on where the journey takes us. Because I close my eyes with them and I'll get visuals, or I'll like hear what to say next, or I'll just intuitively know where to guide them. But typically always we move into past experiences where there was rejection or not feeling enough. And we string that timeline back into childhood. We find the origin of when this energy became trauma, unprocessed energy. And once it becomes trauma, it creates a whole timeline. So let's say it was like, I see it right now. It was like first grade. I got rejected by this guy named Sasha.
Well, that's fair trauma. That's fair.
He was this like Russian boy and I like got rejected. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not enough. So what happened was that was trauma. I couldn't process it. I just didn't know how to handle it because children like just don't have the capacity to handle this. And that created a timeline in my life. So then I was first grade, and then like sixth grade happened again, got rejected. 10th grade happened again. And just created this timeline of this energy that like, then it came into adult life. And during awakenings is when like patterns show up and all this stuff. It gives you an opportunity to clear trauma. And so once I went back to that inner child piece and had someone like my mentor at the time hold space for me and drop me into this work that I do now, it cleared the energy. And so there was no more rejection. There was no more ghosting. Literally my external reality completely shifted. And I was like, oh, that's all you had to do? I didn't have to journal all day. I didn't have to meditate for 4 hours. I didn't have to do 20 ice baths and 10 breathwork sessions. I didn't have to do any of that. I literally had to close my eyes and let someone else guide me into my landscape and subconscious and inner child. Like, oh, hell yeah. There's no way I'm not going to do this for others. And so I've become that for others, but I wouldn't be able to guide people as deeply if I hadn't met myself that deep.
So it seems like you're attracting people, you're attracting people who need to heal things that you've healed yourself.
Yeah, a lot of people have past versions of me in them. It's so sick because we're all connected, you know? So it's like whether I've worked with people who were in like manic episodes or people who are just like, ooh, I want to learn about the chakras. Like whatever you're at in your awakening journey, like I got you. It's like I'm not scared of anything because I went to the depths of that psychosis and I know what this is. And I just love holding space for people. It's like a ceremony and I can feel them and it's just the most soul filling thing to do. And I attract a lot of people, yeah, that are going through things that I've gone through. A lot of people lately have been attracting are a lot of entrepreneurs, They're just trying to tap into this frequency, into their abundance. And also, a lot of people are wanting to learn about like psychic gifts and intuitive gifts, um, which is cool because everyone's going through these deeper portals of awakening.
Yeah. Well, speaking of psychic gifts, then you're saying like when you guide these people into this deep meditation space, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
that I think you kind of said that you are kind of joining them in their headspace. Is this like a form of telepathy or some other type of telekinetic? Not, I don't think it's telekinetics, but some sort of tele phenomenon that you're tapping into when you say this. This is the end of part 2. In part 3, Caroline and I talk about sex energy, we talk about psychic abilities, we talk about energy healing, and we talk about how modern day feminism is really cheating women when it comes to sexual empowerment. All of this in part 3.